This is for parents and especially for school administrators. What is data-driven learning? And maybe more importantly, is it appropriate for your school? Very few schools are going to find that data-driven learning is educating. Data-driven learning is measuring over and over and over again at the expense of teaching and building skills. So when kids are tested over and over, their inherent abilities, enhanced maybe a little bit by some classroom time, don't improve as much as exhaustive classroom time and maybe a little bit of testing at the end. That's the way things used to be, and kids learned immensely better 40 years ago than they do now. Why are schools moving to data-driven learning? It's cheaper, okay? Plug in answer choices on a Scantron into a test or computer entry into a test, programmed to give results. Teachers, instead of teaching, become analyzers. And unfortunately, they're at the behest of tests that might not be developed all that well. That's probably the weaker link. It's not the 50-year-old teacher who's giving instruction. It's a 22-year-old programmer who may or may not be steeped in the nuances of right and wrong answers. And what's totally missing is the actual learning that is not even in an A, B, C, D answer choice mode. I have been at the helm of a company that has proudly helped on tests where A, B, C, D really does matter. That's the SAT. But the SAT is a finishing test. It is designed to measure what students have learned in multiple grades. This kind of test is not appropriate for doing learning. And data-driven programs are replacing good learning. Data itself has faults, or the analysis of it. Data will not measure reasoning, how a student would get to an answer, right or wrong. And even the display of data is fault-laced, because beforehand, some programmer has decided what categories to classify certain types of problems. But problems in real-world situations rarely lend themselves to categories. And so a student whose data report shows weak on a category that has maybe 5 questions, but might really know the stuff, and the questions are stymieing the student, not the material, ends up with a very bad score on that 5. Maybe has to go into some remedial learning when all it takes is just a quick analysis. Meanwhile, an accidentally good section where a student guessed or manipulated, and a lot of tests are open to that, so that student gets an overly good score in a section without really knowing it. This happens too. And what good is it in the first place? Why do we have to measure so darn much? A live teacher, a para, can determine whether a 5th grader or a 9th grader can read at a proper level. These same teachers and paras can determine whether kids are computing well. They don't need data reams of test after test after test. So please, if you're in charge of school curricula, whether you're a parent or administrator or maybe an assertive teacher, please be wary that data-driven is not an asset. It's a cost saver for somebody, but it comes at the expense of good teaching and good learning.